One person has been very dedicated in asking me to build Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender in D&D. So I think it's about time I finally live up to that request, because they've been very persistent. I threw it up for a vote on my Discord, everybody agreed, that's who we want to build. It just took that one person leaving that comment, so hopefully I do him justice. First things first, we have to pick a race, and we have two really solid options here. I'll save the alternative option for the end of this build just to throw it out there, but in the Avatar universe, he's pretty much just a human, but he will be a variant human, so he can get a little more versatility. Becoming a variant human gives us one skill, so we're going to grab Perception just because it's generally pretty useful, and we'll be able to get most of the other skills that feel true to Uncle Iroh in other ways throughout this build. Then we also get a feat, but we're going to save that feat for just a second because it's going to be very relevant in just a moment. Then when it comes to a background, he is a member of the Order of the White Lotus, and that's a very notable but somewhat secretive organization. And there happens to be a background that fits this idea perfectly in D&D, and it's called Faction Agent. It's used for things like the Harpers or other random organizations, even though the Harpers like to pretend they're a secret organization, but really everybody knows about them. But we can think about the Order of the White Lotus as a similar faction. This gives us skill proficiencies in Insight and one other skill of our choice. So we're just going to grab Persuasion for all of the great advice Uncle Iroh gives throughout the series. Then when it comes to some starting stats, we're going to have a point spread that looks like this. Obviously we need a lot of wisdom because you are the wise old uncle, and we have a decent amount of dexterity because obviously we're going to be jumping into monk for our starting class. Avatar: The Last Airbender very heavily relies on lots of martial arts throughout the show, so there's really no other way to go. Becoming a monk gives us two skills, so the two skills we're going to grab are acrobatics because it's an athletic type skill, but it relies more on dexterity, so it can be a bit more useful to us. And we're going to grab history because you are a bit of a history buff, and your vast knowledge of history is very helpful for your insights and helping to encourage and help out those around you. Also, by starting in monk, you get saving throws in strength and dexterity, and you get access to simple weapons and short swords. At first level of monk, you get unarmored defense, so your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your wisdom modifier, and you get access to martial arts. So now whenever you make an unarmed strike, you can use your dexterity modifier instead of your strength modifier. You get a free attack as your bonus action as long as you use your attack action on your turn, and on top of that you get access to martial arts die, which is currently a D4, but that does increase in size as you level up in monk. You can use this to replace the damage for your unarmed strikes or any of your monk weapons, which is just any weapon you're proficient with by default as a monk. Then at second level of monk, you get unarmored movement, which boosts your movement speed by 10 feet, and you get access to ki. You have a number of ki points equal to your level in monk. You can spend them on things like flurry of blows, so you can make 2 unarmed strikes as your bonus action instead of just 1. You can also use patient defense, so you can take the dodge action as a bonus action on your turn, or you can use step of the wind, so you can take the dash or disengage action as your bonus action, and your jump distance is doubled for the turn. Then at third level of monk, you get a monastic tradition, and you may have noticed we haven't gotten any firebending yet for a very prolific firebender, and firebenders actually learn very much from dragons in the Avatar: The Last Airbender show. Airbenders learn plenty from air bison, and earthbenders learn from earthbending animals, but of course the best firebending animal you can use as reference is a dragon, so we're going to take Way of the Ascendant Dragon. With the Way of the Ascendant Dragon subclass, we get a few features right away. The first one being Draconic Disciple. So if you fail an intimidation or persuasion check, you can use your reaction to re-roll that check, but you can only do this once per long rest. You also get Draconic Strike, so when you hit with an unarmed strike, you can actually go ahead and use elemental damage instead. So now you can do some fire damage, which is finally going to give us some firebending. We'll get a little more in just a second, but just to round out the Draconic Disciple thing, you also get Tongue of Dragons, so you can speak Draconic. And you also get the feature Breath of the Dragon, and that makes it so whenever you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with a massive AoE attack. And this is very notable because it only replaces one of your attacks. So that means you can do this AoE attack and then follow it up with your normal attack and then your bonus action attack, and then you can do flurry of blows for one more attack as the bonus action. Overall, it's a pretty solid upgrade. You exhale elemental damage, which can be, of course, fire damage, which can be a 20-foot cone or a 30-foot line. And Also, very notably, you can choose any element here. So if you want it to be fire damage, that works just fine. But Uncle Iroh is very known for being one of the first to be able to do lightning bending. Basically taking in a lightning bolt, redirecting it around his heart and out his other hand. And I figured out a great way to pull this off. And it all ties back to that feat that we took from being a variant human. So we haven't had any firebending really up until this point, but we actually had a little bit earlier because of the feat that I chose. I chose Magic Initiate. I went ahead and dove into the druid spell list so that way we can use our high wisdom for the spell casting, grabbed Control Flame and Produce Flame, but I also grabbed the first level spell Absorb Elements. So if you were to take lightning damage from, let's say, Lightning Bolt or Call Lightning, you can then use your reaction to give yourself resistance to that damage, absorbing some of the energy. Then when you hit with a melee attack on your next turn, you can add an extra 1d6 of that damage type. So let's say you get hit with Lightning Bolt. You wind up being able to absorb half of the damage you would take. Then on your following turn, you wind up striking out with a normal melee attack, doing an extra 1d6 of lightning damage in the process, and then follow it up whenever you have extra attack with one more attack that you can replace with your Breath of the Dragon. And you can also use lightning for that damage type, really just focusing in on the idea. And by the way, the damage you do from that Breath of the Dragon is equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die. That upgrades to 3 rolls of your martial arts die at 11th level, and you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. And if you're all out of uses, you can still use it by spending 2 key points. Then at 4th level of Monk, you get slow fall, so you can reduce some damage from falling, and you get an ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up that dexterity by 2 points. Then at 5th level of Monk, our martial arts die upgrades from a d4 to a d6, helping all of our Breath of the Dragon stuff as well as our basic punches. And we get Stunning Strike, which is just generally a pretty powerful thing to have, allowing you to stun your enemies, and you get extra attack. So now you can do a melee attack, your Breath of the Dragon, and 2 attacks as your bonus action with Flurry of Blows, leading to a pretty solid combo, including some AoE damage. Then at 6th level of Monk, your unarmed strikes count as magical with key empowered strikes. Your unarmored movement speed goes from 10 feet to a 15-foot bonus, and you get another feature from Way of the Ascendant Dragon called Wings Unfurled. So this gives you a very temporary flying speed whenever you use your Step of the Wind feature, which you can think of as you blasting some fire out as sort of a way to propel yourself very temporarily. Then at 7th level of Monk, you get Stillness of Mind, allowing you to use an action to remove any charmed or frightened effects on yourself, and you get Evasion. So this is going to be especially helpful for the redirecting lightning thing, because Evasion makes it so whenever you have to make a dexterity saving throw to reduce any damage you would take, you automatically take half damage. And if you succeed on that saving throw, you take 0 damage. Both Lightning Bolt and Call Lightning require dexterity saving throws, meaning that evasion works with them. So let's say you fail on the saving throw, you still take half damage. Now you can cast Absorb Elements to cut that damage in half again, allowing yourself to become resistant to it. Then you can do that whole combo that we talked about earlier. Then at 8th level of Monk, you get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up our dexterity, again, maxing it out. I know Uncle Iroh isn't the most dexterous in his older age, but he does still manage to stay pretty fit for his age especially, and on top of that, dexterity modifiers help more stuff for monks early on, even if our wisdom modifier does help our bending more than dexterity does. Then at 9th level of Monk, we get a boost to our unarmored movement, so we can actually run up vertical surfaces or across water, even though that might not apply to Uncle Iroh as much. Then at 10th level of Monk, we get Purity of Body, making us immune to disease and poison, and we get another boost to our unarmored movement, boosting it from a 15-foot bonus to a 20-foot bonus. Then at 11th level of Monk, our martial arts die upgrades to a d8 of damage. Don't forget, now our Breath of the Dragon rolls 3 of those dice, which is going to be a pretty considerable boost considering the size of the dice have increased and the amount of dice you roll is increased. And you get another feature from Way of the Ascendant Dragon called Aspect of the Worm. This allows you to radiate an aura around you, which is just something that can kind of go with your reputation as Uncle Iroh. You get to choose what effect it grants for you, and it lasts for 1 minute. It can make it so you and your allies are resistant to one type of elemental damage of your choice, or you can have Frightful Presence, causing nearby creatures to be frightened of you. You can only use this feature once per long rest unless you spend another 3 key points to activate it again. Then at 12th level of Monk, you get another ability score improvement, so let's go ahead and boost up that Wisdom finally. Then at 13th level of Monk, you get Tongue of the Sun and Moon, so you can speak all languages, which can be pretty helpful overall. At 14th level of Monk, your unarmored movement speed boosts from a 20-foot bonus to a 25-foot bonus, and you get Diamond Soul, so you have proficiency in all saving throws. At 15th level of Monk, you get Timeless Body, so you basically don't suffer the frailty and old age, and you can't be magically aged, which is kind of cool, but it doesn't come into play that much in D&D. Then at 16th level of Monk, you get another ability score improvement, so let's go ahead and max out that Wisdom while we're at it. And then at 17th level of Monk, our martial arts die upgrades to a D10, which is the strongest we can get as a monk. And we get one more feature from our Way of the Ascendant Dragon, and it's called Ascendant Aspect. And this actually grants 3 benefits. You can augment your Breath of the Dragon ability by spending just 1 key point. So the cone upgrades to a 60-foot cone, which is pretty massive, or a 90-foot line. And each creature in that area is actually going to take 4 rolls of your martial arts die as damage if you choose to spend that key point. And they're still going to take half as much damage even if they succeed on their saving throw. The other feature you get from Ascendant Aspect is Blind Sight, which is just generally pretty helpful to have in your disposal. And the last thing you get is Explosive Fury. So if you choose to activate your Aspect of the Worm ability, Draconic Fury just explodes from you. Choose any number of creatures within the aura of your Aspect of the Worm, and each of them has to succeed a Dexterity saving throw or take 3d10 of any element that you choose. We're probably going to be sticking with fire most of the time though. Then at 18th level of Monk, we get one feature that really doesn't apply to Uncle Iroh very much, and that's Empty Body. So you can spend some key points to become invisible, which really doesn't apply to Uncle Iroh, but it also makes you resistant to all damage except for force damage. The other bonus at this level is that your unarmored movement boosts from 25 feet to a 30-foot bonus, making your overall movement 60 feet, which is pretty darn fast. Then at 19th level, you get another ability score improvement, but we have pretty much all the stats that we want. The only thing we could use is some more health, so let's take the feat Tough, which gives us an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build. And then at 20th level of Monk, we get Perfect Self, so if you have to roll initiative and you're completely out of key, you end up regaining 4 key just by rolling initiative in the first place. And I actually thought about a completely different race for this, just because there's such a long lineage of firebenders, earthbenders, waterbenders, airbenders, and I thought that might actually fit with a Ganassi instead. So I was very tempted to go with a fire Ganassi, but it felt a little more fitting to stick with Variant Human for the time being. However, if you want a build version of this that has both the Variant Human and the Fire Ganassi versions, I'll go ahead and include both of those up on my Patreon, where I include the character sheets for all of my builds, and I'll give a quick shout out to those folks in a second. But first, if you like D&D related content, make sure to subscribe. It really helps the channel, and apparently it makes it so you roll more nat 20s than if you weren't subscribed. But those patrons that also really support this channel to an insane degree, they're scrolling on by right here. They are incredibly awesome. I really appreciate everything that they do, and they get access to all the character sheets for all of my builds, as well as anything else I can think of as far as benefits. And there's some especially awesome patrons: the Holy 999s, Christopher Sams, Dark of Skies, Barrows Gruel, Zach, Felix Ulick, The 10586, Dennis Bumgardner, Barrelist, Kevin Shirley, Zephyros, That Funny Man 57, Joshua Maynard, CGC 2014, Panda Milkshake, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Carcat Cutene, Decker Joint, Z13, Viral Nervar, Daniel Galvin, and the Dino 21. Then going above and beyond that are my Dungeon Master level patrons that I play D&D with: T Brownie, Julia B. De Oliveira, Just Wolf, Daniel Saffler, Comanziak, Cyberciety, and Salvador. Then going above and beyond anything I ever expected is my God tier level patron, GameSteak. He helps this channel to an insane degree, so he's really earned that title. So a very special thank you to him. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session. And if you made it all the way to the end here, I would also like to know, if you go back and watch any Uncle Iroh related stuff, do you wind up bawling your eyes out as much as I do? Because he winds up hitting every emotional chord I could possibly think of, especially with some of the scenes where, if you've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know exactly what I'm referring to. And again, a special shout out to the one person who requested this over and over again. So special thank you to you. So thanks again for watching. I hope you roll a whole bunch of nat 20s, and especially if you want to play as Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender in Dungeons and Dragons.